Hi guys, the Tories are terrible in power and useless in opposition. When they're running things, it's generally into the ground. And when they're critiquing the government, it seems just for the sake of it. A party with no vision for the future, just hoping and relying on the current government to crash and burn so they can take over. When it comes to tariffs, they're afraid to criticize Donald Trump because they basically love the guy. But at the same time, they pretend to care about Britain. When it comes to trade with China, they want to appear to be on the side of British industry, but we all know that they destroyed British manufacturing. A perfect example of this is when the Shadow Trade Secretary appeared on Radio 4 and provided zero solutions, just criticisms not based anywhere near reality.
The EU jacked up tariffs on the imports of Chinese cars earlier last year or about a year ago. But tariffs, whenever they're imposed, generally put friction in the way of world trade.
Just
and make us all poorer.
On the Chinese cars point, then, the Conservative Party is against having tariffs on Chinese cars coming here, even if large numbers now come at a very cheap price.
No, look, it was just a general point, Justin, about the fact that lots of different countries at different times
What about the specific
tariffs.
one, though, on Chinese cars? Because it is a decision facing this government, isn't it? So, as you say, the EU does put, in fact, all industrialised countries, apart from Britain, I think I'm right in saying, put tariffs on Chinese cheap EVs. Should we or should we not?
Well, look, I'm not the trade secretary. I'm the shadow trade secretary. If I was,
well, let me elevate you for a minute
very closely,
because you want the job. Let me give you the job.
Approach, Justin, to the United States that have been much more active earlier on. If you think about it, we've got.
It's interesting that
sorry,
Mr. Griffiths, it's really interesting that you won't. I mean, this is a real issue for the car industry. The car industry here is wobbling. They're in desperate straits.
Yes, they are, and they need answers. Of course, they're not going to get answers from the Conservatives because they have no answers. Notice that he pivoted to Donald Trump when the question was about China, about EVs, electric vehicles coming in from China. Would the Conservatives support tariffs on those vehicles? Now, the Conservatives are in a bit of a fix because they supported policies that would damage UK manufacturing, like Brexit. They refused to invest necessary resources to help industries, like the car industry. So, if they were to support tariffs, which, would be designed to protect British manufacturing, that would run against the idea of Tory ideology. The Tory ideology is free trade. But at the same time, they can't say, well, we're against tariffs because our friend Donald Trump is imposing tariffs. And they will never criticize Donald Trump. They may criticize tariffs generally, say tariffs are not really a good idea. But when it comes to Donald Trump, what is the answer? Well, the Labour government should have negotiated better with Donald Trump. They should have sat down with him earlier. So the problem for the Conservatives is not that Donald Trump is imposing tariffs around the world. It's that the Labour government didn't do a deal faster with him. As I keep saying, you can't do a deal with Donald Trump. He's completely unreliable. So I'm not carrying water for the Labour government here, but you can't do a deal with Donald Trump. So it doesn't matter. If you had started before the US presidential election to try and do a deal with Donald Trump on trade or whatever, it wouldn't make any difference because Donald Trump is irrational. Donald Trump doesn't care about other countries. He has demonstrated that on a number of occasions. But the Conservatives don't have a vision. They can't say we support British industry by imposing tariffs because then it would make it much more difficult for people to access the materials they need from China to produce cars, whatever manufacturing there is still left. But also it would go against their ideology of free trade. They're supposed to be against protectionism. So they're supposed to be against the idea of tariffs. The Conservatives are all over the place. They don't have a vision. All they're doing, it seems, is sitting on the sidelines, hoping that Labour crash and burn so that they will be elected by default. And I think this is their entire strategy. Don't talk about any policies, just criticise, sit on the sidelines, be a bit like Nigel Farage, don't actually have a vision for the future, don't have any policies, just hope that the incumbent fails so that we will be elected by default because we are the other party that people have a choice. Labour or the Conservatives in England. Wales and Scotland is different. But in England, it's the Conservatives or Labour. And if Labour fail, then we win by default. We don't actually have to have any policies. We don't actually have to think. Look at who's in charge of our party, completely incompetent. So we don't actually have to do any heavy lifting. We can be just lazy and hope that it all falls into our hands. And maybe that's a good strategy. It's not a strategy that political parties should have. They should actually present something to the electorate. They should actually say, these are our policies, please vote for them because they're good policies. But what have the Conservatives? They have nothing. On the one hand, they're saying we need to have a better relationship with Donald Trump. Then on the other hand, they're saying we will impose tariffs on China or we will not impose tariffs. They don't actually have a solution here. But once again, they're a useless party. But they're relying on the public to just switch back to them at the next election. And that's the sad state of affairs. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.